Everything is sexist.
Today's episode of #Everything is Sexist is a little bit different, and you'll see why in a bit. This was a story brought to me by one well-spoken, plain-speaking A10 warthog, aptly named Plain Speech.
Why would you ever send an unsolicited dick pic?
Well, normally I'm not the kind of guy to send a dick pic, but since you mention it, here are some dicks you may enjoy. Major Dick Bong of the United States Air Force Medal of Honor winner, Dick Van Dyke, Dick Tracy, Dick Butkus, Football Hall of Famer, famed stock car driver Dick Trickle, Richard Nixon, President of the United States, and last but definitely not least, Dick Grayson, aka Nightwing.
Go check him out, links in the description. So unlike my last video where the real dad wasn't allowed to be part of his child's life at all, like no child support, no visits, no anything, we're going to be covering a story about a man who didn't have children, but was somehow made to pay child support for said kid that was not his. So we've done essentially what could be considered a complete 180 this week. Yay.
Man may be jailed for not paying child support for a son who isn't his.
Remember last week when I said, this is some, honestly, back-ass words thinking? I take it back. This is some back-ass words thinking. Well, actually, I don't take it back, because it's still back-ass words, but you get my drift.
Detroit, Michigan. A Michigan man could go to jail for failing to pay child support, but the child he's accused of not paying for isn't even his, according to WXYZ in Detroit.
I mean, last week's story was ass backwards in a way more heartbreaking way, but this week's story is ass backwards in an infuriating way that makes you want to go at it with the perpetrators in a ring for about 10 rounds, or till the other guy can't get up. Either one. A tad violent, yes, I know, but there's nothing wrong with two able-bodied people sitting in a ring, facing each other, and sorting out their differences like civilized human beings.
You'll put down your rock and I'll put down my sword and we'll try and kill each other like civilized people.
Of course, I'm kidding. Violence is never the answer. You hear that, Kathy? Never the answer. But that doesn't mean we can't have a healthy duel. Ain't that right, Canada? I mean, isn't Canada a beacon of human rights and liberty and an example of all things admirable? Quips about Canadian silliness aside, at the rate the protests are going, nonviolence may soon be the wishful thinkings of my typically pacifist nature. Papa Jones always emphasized that it's better to be prepared than to regret not being prepared later when you should have been prepared. That being said, I may yet get to use some of my black belt eventually. Always be prepared to defend yourself, right? Right. But tangent about my potential necessity of future violence aside...
Carnell Alexander walked into the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice Friday, knowing in moments he could lose his freedom. Though DNA tests have proven the child isn't his, Alexander still owes more than $30,000 to the state because the child's mother used his name as the father to get welfare benefits.
That is a bitch-ass move. Another thing I learned from Papa Jones. Never lie, because the moment that you compromise your integrity, that's something you cannot rebuild so easily. You've destroyed that. Remember that, ladies. Are you willing to compromise your integrity, your reputation, your word, for the sake of money that you can get any number of other ways? Because if you are, then I think you should really reconsider that lifestyle that led you to making that choice. Be like Michael Jackson and make a change, because that's no way to live. Oddly enough, another one of Michael Jackson's songs, Billie Jean, highlights this issue exactly.
Under Michigan law, that means Alexander owes child support, but an attorney who saw Alexander's story on the news wanted to help. I'm just trying to help him with his future, said attorney Cherika Harris. I'm almost homeless, I'm almost in jail, I'm out of work, said Alexander. My money is being threatened to be taken. Alexander says the law needs to be changed. So when this happens, as it often does, other men don't become dad by default.
Now, you might be asking yourself, how exactly can something like this happen? And as much as this is me covering bullshit news stories that never should happen at all ever because it's just injustice and bullshit, it's also me giving some much needed but not well known information and warning to you guys out there. I figure that avoiding paternity fraud kind of follows the same logical thinking that preventing sexual assault does, and that is in incorporating knowledge into your life. Just as I know that you shouldn't probably drink at a frat house, much less leave an open drink unattended, you should never put your dick in crazy. But I recognize that some shit happens, and hindsight is 20/20. So just like in an instance of sexual assault, you head straight to the police, don't shower, don't pass go, don't collect $200, you also get a paternity test in the instance of potential paternity fraud as soon as possible. Granted, that advice didn't really help Mr. Alexander, but it will help somebody. Hopefully. Maybe. So, back to my earlier point, how is it possible that a woman can snag some poor guy with fake paternity and force him to pay child support? Well, there are a few ways you can do this. Men take note, women ignore, please. This is how you become a baby daddy. And no, I'm not giving you a lesson in the birds and the bees. This is not that kind of talk. Now, the typical route is that you sign the birth certificate, but there's also the thing called a VAP, or a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity, which, if not rescinded within 60 days, it is as binding as an anaconda. Which is an apt metaphor for child support, actually. An anaconda is a snake that slowly squeezes the life out of you for food. And then there's child support, which does the exact same thing. It's just slower, more methodical, and a tad more malicious than, it looks delicious. So anyway, the VAP, the Voluntary Acknowledgement of Paternity, it contains a laundry list of warnings and disclaimers and the like that you really should read before signing, because it does things like waive your rights to paternity testing and is not something that outright establishes custody of the child whatsoever. Those are a whole different set of proceedings. Pro tip, you should most definitely seek a DNA test, because in the event that you wait for the child to get older and they have grown attached to you, the courts may decide that a DNA test is not within the child's best interests, so then you're fucked. However, in some cases, such as this one that I'm covering in this video, paternity can be established without the knowledge of a guy, and the government can just start skimming off your paycheck all willy-nilly, which should be considered actual theft, but isn't, and that really bothers me because, 1, wow, actual abuse of power much makes Ultraman from Crisis on Two Earths look like a kindly civil servant. 2, that is some gross oversight and neglect, and as a control freak, personally, I can't even begin to imagine how anyone could be so completely incompetent as to let such a thing occur. In multiple cases, in multiple states, and it irks me greatly, okay? Anyway, personal pet peeves aside, this is called paternity by default, which is when you don't respond to the action mailed to an address that you no longer live at, and have not lived at in a while. No effort on anyone else's part to contact further. What? Makes no sense to me. If they can come and pursue a $30,000 debt years after the fact without any evidence, they can sure as hell do a Google name search or inquire with other family members or literally anything. It's not that hard to find people, even so many years ago. You could probably find the guy if you put, I don't know, a fraction of the effort into it that you would put into finding him after the fact that he owes you 30 grand. So because she says, and he's not there to have any say, he gets none whatsoever. Right? Yeah, okay. That makes total sense. Whatever. Just gonna go lay down for a little bit. Take this envelope cutter and just... It didn't work. It's not sharp enough. Whatever. Third option. You've married a woman, but she cheats on you. You have no idea, or perhaps you do. It doesn't really matter. Either way, under certain state laws, you are automatically the father. Good for you! Happy Father's Day, by the way. It's coming up. An example of this in Michigan. Although the husband is not the child's biological father, he is the child's legal parent under Michigan law. The husband is the legal parent of every child born or conceived during the marriage. Funnily enough, although not at all really, to be honest, this is just kind of... killing me inside. The reverse is not true. If a man fathers another woman's child while he is married, his wife is not the legal mother of that child. How's that for a double standard? Oh, but I'm just getting started. And then there's the third side of this debacle. Much like in Florida from last week's video, the law in Michigan is that the biological father of such a child born into a marriage has no paternal rights or responsibilities for the child. Oh my God, kill me now. I am... Triggered is not the right word. Seething might be. I don't know. I need something strong to take the edge off. Good stuff. Root beer. Oh. Fresh out of the fridge. Spicy. Where was I? There are probably and most likely more ways that this type of shenanigans can go down, but I don't want to flip shit too soon in the video, and we're like 4 picks in. There are 12 more to go, so don't want to blow my load too soon. You feel? Also, I'm sure that you guys will hit me up with other possibilities in the comments. Most likely. On a separate note, but not really, because all this shenanigans that's going on with like paternity and child custody and all that jazz, it's a problem in Colorado 2016, Texas 2015, Oklahoma 2017, Iowa 2016, Missouri 2013, and that's just what I could find with less than 10 minutes on the Google machine. So obviously the issue is a big one, and it needs to be corrected which is why I'm making this video.
We can be defaulted into being a father of a child that is not ours, he said. I don't understand that law, but it is the law in place. At court on Friday, Alexander wasn't sent to jail, but his case does remain open.
You know, I don't understand the law either. Why is this the case? But more importantly, why is this still the case? In other words, why hasn't it been corrected yet in current year? Oh, that's right.
Women and equality questions every month in the Chamber, which we don't have for men. So the opportunity for men to raise issues that are important to them is very limited. And just to give you a flavour, Mr. Chairman, of the type of things that may come up and which will be part of International Men's Day, I'm not entirely sure why it's so humorous.
Because for some reason, people aren't taking these certain gendered issues as seriously as, say, air conditioning. But oh, hell hath no fury, like that of a feminist, if women's razors are more money than male razors. And that is technically the end of the news story, except that it's not. There's a part 2, and that's what's so different about this week's episode of #Everything is Sexist. There's a follow-up. Goody.
Court finally stops trying to make Detroit men pay child support for a child that isn't his.
Fucking A, am I right? Progress, my dudes. This is such good, very wow. Get hyped, I don't have to flip a chair after all. I know, I'm sorry to disappoint.
Detroit WXYZ. Carnell Alexander says he got a shock during a traffic stop in the early 1990s. The officer arrested him, telling him he is a deadbeat dad.
Well, technically, by the logic of this story and certain peoples that are involved in the story, you know, since Carnell doesn't actually have any kids, I can also be considered a deadbeat dad as well. Sorry, not sorry. I've probably opened myself up to people calling me daddy in the future.
Oh my. Oh my.
When he appeared in court, Alexander told the judge he didn't have any children. The court told him to find the woman. The court gave him an old address. When he couldn't find her, he says, was told that he would have to pay. It's such an unfair system, said Alexander, period. He later learned that while he was in prison for a crime he committed as a young man, an ex listed him as father on an application for welfare benefits. Notice that the paternity hearing that followed was taken to his old house. When he didn't appear for the hearing he didn't know about, he was made dad by default.
Yep, like I said, back asswards. Reading about this baboonery makes me want to flip something.
Bang, bang.
There, all better.
He went to court again and again, but could not get the matter resolved. No one ever listened until I met you, said Alexander. After 7, Action News told his story, an attorney volunteered to take on the case.
And this is the important part. Being loud about these issues is important. Being loud and persistent. You are not supposed to give up when you have a kid and your baby mama won't let you see your kid. But you're also not supposed to give up when some bitch cons you and the government out of your hard-earned income and frames it as child support. It's why I'm making this video. It's why the MRA movement exists. Because traditionally, the louder and the more often that you talk about these issues, the more likely things are to change. If you don't say anything, no one's ever going to know that it exists. And I would say that that goes without saying, but obviously I'd be contradicting myself.
Sharika Harris says she did it because she is outraged by how the system treated Carnell Alexander. You declare him a deadbeat, you garnish his wages, take away his ability to make a living. That is an illegal taking. It is a violation of his constitutional rights. Attorney Harris is prepared to appear before a federal judge on Wednesday to argue that Alexander deserves to sue the state and Wayne County for violating his rights. She says the case is important to protecting others.
I'm wondering if Carnell was ever actually reimbursed for the money that the state took from him, or if he, in fact, continued to pursue this lawsuit of his. Does anyone know? Because I couldn't find it at all. It's important that something happened, because it goes without saying that someone's got to be held liable for this bullshit to set a precedent, to discourage such gross negligence. If someone steals from you, they go to jail, right? And usually you get your stolen shit back. If there are consequences to bullshit like this, it's less likely to happen. Holding anyone, specifically the government, for their wrongful actions accountable is important, because if we can't hold our government accountable, then democracy and liberty is dead. And I don't want to live in that kind of a society. Thank you very much.
It is only as her suit has moved forward that Wayne County dismissed the child support case against her client. Alexander got official notice days ago that after a 26-year-long fight, he doesn't owe child support for a child that isn't his.
Holy hell. 26 years, what the frick? All it took was a lawsuit?
So the judge has finally agreed with me that this shouldn't have been done, said Harris. Today I'm happy that the debt has been lifted, but I'm still hurt by what I have been through over 26 years, said Alexander.
At least we get some happy news, even though it's a tad bit of an old story. But it wasn't just me covering a story, it was some much needed advice and tips and the like, and I hope you guys learned something. On to some other news. I have a Discord. I called it the Flubber Initiative because reasons. It is in the description, so join that if you want to hang. I'll be on there daily, just dicking around like I do. Anyway, if you have any anecdotes, videos, or articles and such that would be relevant to the hashtag Everything is Sexist series, you can email me at weebo0jones@gmail.com with the subject line hashtag Everything is Sexist, or at me on Minds or on Twitter at weebojones with the hashtag Everything is Sexist.